அது சார் யூடியூப்ல எது வருதுன்னு எனக்கு சொல்லணும்.
30 seconds ஆகும். போட்டுக்கலாம்.
YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. வந்துருச்சு. உங்களுக்கு லேட்டா வரும் பாருங்க.
30 செகண்ட்
இருங்க, என்னோட ஸ்கிரீன் தான் வருது. இப்போ எந்த ஸ்கிரீன் வருது பாருங்க. நான் இங்க மாத்தினா எனக்கு யூடியூப் தான் வருது. இல்ல என்னோட விண்டோஸ் ஸ்கிரீன் தான் வருது.
அதே தான் சொன்னேன். அவர் போட்டு பின் பண்ணி தான் வரணும்.
அதான் சார்.
இது லோடிங் ஆயிருக்கு. ஸ்ட்ரீம் ஆன ஸ்டார்ட் ஆயிடுச்சுன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். லைவ் வந்துருச்சு.
என்னோட ஸ்கிரீன் தான் வருது. இப்போ நான் இங்க மாத்தினா எனக்கு யூடியூப்
அது இல்ல என்னோட விண்டோஸ் இதுல வந்து மைக் வந்து ஆன்ல இருக்கு. ஆடியோ கட் ஸ்டுடியோ மோட்
டிஸ்டர்ப் ஆடியோவா
கட் பண்ணிடுங்க. அதை கட் பண்ணிடுங்க.
இதுங்க.
Good morning, Dr. Vivek. Good morning, Mr. Mukesh. I'm Chitra, the Secretary, Honorary Secretary of Coimbatore Productivity Council. We have given the schedule as 10:30. However, can we, with the permission of everybody here, can we start by 10:35? Is that okay? We'll give some more minutes for people to log in. Right. Thank you. Please be on hold. Let me once again welcome each and every one of you. We will be on hold for 5 more minutes. Then we will start the program. Thank you. Meanwhile, some ground rules. You can have your video on. We will welcome that because the speaker would also like to see who he's speaking to. But you can always mute your audio. So to avoid disturbance, probably when we ask question, we can unmute the audio. So we'll start by 10:35, please.
Another ground rule, if I ask a question, please respond on the chat.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, respond on the chat. That's great. Okay.
Okay, good morning to all of you. Chitra madam, is it okay? We can start now?
can do that, sir. We can.
Okay. So we have 50 here and a few more, but I think we had 600. So we think they'll be joining in shortly. So let me start very briefly. I don't want to take up too much of the time. Gupta ji, we are looking forward to your talk here. So, okay. So very briefly, a few words about the Productivity Week will be in order. Every year, this country marks the National Productivity Day as the 12th of February. This day is part of the next 7 days, which is known as the National Productivity Week. It's observed this or every year from 12th to 18th of February. The central body which observes this is the National Productivity Council, under which the Coimbatore Productivity Council is just a minute. 1 minute. Okay, and I would request the Honorary Secretary, Dr. Chitra, to kindly go ahead and talk about what this is and the whole thing. Thank you, madam.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Dr. Vivek was talking about the Productivity Week celebration. He would deliberate a little bit more on that. Let me, to kick off this, formally welcome you all for this Productivity Week celebration. Thank you all for joining us today. Now, this is the first time we are doing the Productivity Week celebration online, but there is always a flip side and a better side in the same coin. So we are able to be at home and then attend this particular forum. We are able to meet Mr. Mukesh, who's agreed to address us on this day. He's from Bangalore. Mr. Mukesh, thank you very much for agreeing to be with us and speak about a great topic, motivation and achievement. No, we do all require motivation, particularly during this pandemic period. So thank you. And Mr. Mukesh is the manager of SAP from Singapore, sorry, not from Bangalore. So that's a great thing that he's able to address us from there. And Dr. Vivek is a person who's behind this particular identification of chief guest and putting things together. Thank you, Dr. Vivek. And all the participants who are eagerly participating in this particular session. Let me just give a gist about Coimbatore Productivity for those of you who have joined us only today. It was started in the year 1958. We have completed 60 years, 64th year we are running. So we have done the Diamond Jubilee celebration. It has the Coimbatore Productivity Council has taken the contribution from great stalwarts like Padma Bhushan, Sitra, Srinivasan, Dr. G.R.D., Dr. L.G. Ramamurthy, and various other stalwarts have contributed towards the growth of Coimbatore Productivity Council. And as the name itself suggests, productivity is at the heart of Coimbatore Productivity Council's all initiatives and activities. It tries to imbibe the culture of productivity among the industries and wherever it can help to boost up the productivity part of it. And apart from that, the Productivity Council takes up a lot of consultancy assignments and also runs interplant training for the benefit of industries. And it has got two flagship programs called as Postgraduate Diploma in Personal and Industrial Relationship, as well as Diploma in Quality Management. Those of you who would like to know more about this, you can log in the Coimbatore Productivity website and then look into it. So as Dr. Vivek was rightly telling, this is a part of the Productivity Council celebration. We also celebrate Productivity Conclave, which is again a flagship event. Apart from Productivity Conclave, we do have Safety Conclave and HR Conclave and Leadership Conclave also. So with that, few words, let me hand over the virtual podium to Dr. Vivek once again to formally talk about the Productivity Council. And once again, I invite you all to log into the Coimbatore Productivity Council website and then look into it. I'm looking forward to your session, Mr. Mukesh, on motivation and achievement. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Vivek.
Thank you, madam. Let's take okay, I jumped the gun a little bit. My apologies, madam. Okay, here you are. Briefly recap. The National Productivity Council observes this particular week as the Productivity Week, and there is an interesting history. The Coimbatore Productivity Council was set up 2 years before the National Productivity Council was set up, so happens to be the oldest productivity council in India. Predates even the mother body, National Productivity Council. So this day, the main purpose of this National Productivity Day is to encourage the implementation of productivity tools and techniques with contemporary relevant themes. It also aims to highlight what more could be done to increase the efficiency of India's productivity and create a more inclusive and sustainable model of socio-economic development. Now, this year, the theme of the Productivity Week is going to be self-reliance through productivity. The significance is the National Productivity Day wants to draw attention to increasing quality, efficiency, and competitiveness levels of different sectors in the Indian economy so that the country can emerge as a global leader. The event is also held to promote the idea of productivity as an evolving concept. It does not focus on just increasing production. It's more of a holistic concept which takes into account issues related to environment, quality, human resource development, and so on. There are a few interesting quotes here from the National Productivity Council. Quote number 1: productivity is being able to do things that you were never able to do before. Another one: productivity is never an accident. It is always the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. And the last one: focus on being productive instead of being busy. Okay, so given all this, we try to get the best speakers across the world, and being online, it's given us a great opportunity to go international. So, Gupta ji, thank you so much. He has given me a very short biodata of a very long career, and that's how he likes to keep it. Special thanks to you, sir, for accepting this. Gupta ji has over 25 years of experience. He has helped some of the largest businesses. Okay, I'm talking large means really large. In Asia Pacific, in their digital transformation journey. He happens to be a senior director at SAP Labs, Customer Advocacy Division. There are a few things which he didn't send, but I would like to quote here. He is a long-standing trainer. He is a long-standing master trainer in design thinking, and he enjoys coming in and training anyone in any institution given his spare time. Okay. He has worked for, I request everyone to mute. Yeah, Bhavani madam, can you mute all the rest? Yeah, thank you. So I would request all of you to kindly mute when the speaker starts so you can pay maximum attention there. Okay. He has worked for multiple industries in all kinds of roles: sales, marketing, strategy, business development, production, logistics, supply chain, partner recruitment, and new product development. He is the author of 2 lovely books. One is The Startup Mentor, and the second one is Thrive. He also runs a very popular podcast. I enjoy watching most of it. In fact, most of the audience here would really benefit by going in there. He gets some of the best speakers in. Okay, and all insights, you should see the discussion there. It's totally frank, down to earth, and no blah blah. Okay, he's extremely passionate about learning and staying current. Even if a newbie, okay, call it a person who has absolutely no knowledge about deeper things, comes and gives a new idea. I've seen him sitting and listening to it with a lot of attention, and then he goes back and does some research on it. So it's extremely fortunate that we are able to have you with us here, sir. We are looking forward to a great 2-hour session. Welcome, and I would hand over the mic to you, sir.
Thanks a lot for your kind words, Dr. Vivek, and for your invitation for me to join this celebration and probably share some of the things that I have learned. I mean, I don't claim to be an expert or really someone who knows everything. I think it's just that I'm maybe a little bit ahead of a lot of people when it comes to the journey of life, and I would like to just share what I have learned in my journey so far. So for the next 45-50 minutes or so, I will share what I have learned, and then I'll leave another 15-20 minutes for questions and answers. But that doesn't mean that you need to wait for your questions till the end. At any point in time, if you have any question, please drop them on the chat. The team is monitoring the chat, and they will bring it up as and when we start doing the Q&A. One of the things that I really like when I'm presenting or when I'm talking to an audience is to have an interactive conversation instead of just standing on a stage and doing a lecture. So at some point in time, I will ask you questions, and I would really request that you respond to those questions on the chat so that I can see your responses, and then my talk or what I'm sharing will change according to the response that I get. So I'm not planning to present any slides. So it's just going to be a heart-to-heart conversation around motivation and productivity. One of the things that comes to mind when it comes to productivity is people talk about tools, people talk about tips and tricks. While we can discuss that in the Q&A segment, my talk is not going to focus on the tips and tricks, but going to focus slightly a little more abstract in terms of why what we do works and what we need to think about, right? So once you are able to understand these fundamentals, the tips and tricks, I think, is more individual focused and varies depending upon each one of us, each one of our situations, and each one of our challenges. So instead of having this talk on 10 things to do to be more motivated and productive, what I'm going to do is talk to you about motivation in general, about what and how motivation works, talk to you about productivity in general in terms of how and what leads to productivity, and then we can have a conversation. We can, of course, talk about tips and tricks in the Q&A if you want me to, but that's not going to be the focus of the conversation today. So first question to the audience. On a rating of 1 to 10, how motivated do you feel right now on the chat? 1 being completely demotivated, 10 being fully motivated and raring to go. Where do you see yourself on a rating of 1 to 10? How motivated are you right now? 9, 7. Guys, you'll have to respond. 6. 9. 7. Okay. Lots of 7s, 6, a lot of 9s as well. Cool. But one of the things that you need to ask when someone says, how motivated are you? The question is, in what context? Are you motivated at work? Does the rating that you've given here change based on the context? How motivated are you when it comes to you as a family person, as a father, as a husband, as an employee, as a manager? Does it change? To a lot of people, it does. For some people, they are a lot more motivated when they are at home setting, whereas some of them are a lot more motivated when you are in a work setting. Now, if you look at life as a journey, motivation is like the fuel that you have in your car. Assume that you're traveling life's journey and you are driving a car. Motivation is like your fuel. Without the fuel, you can't go anywhere, right? So that is why it is important that we are motivated in whatever it is that we are trying to do, whatever journey that we are taking. And the car is like the productivity. So how well you maintain your car, how much productive you are, is important as well. So when you combine these two, which is you are motivated and you know how to be productive, you can go distances, right? But in order to go to a distance, or in order to go in the journey of life, take the journey of life, you need to know what the destination is, which is also very important, right? Where are you going towards? A lot of times, productivity for the sake of productivity is not good. This is what creates a lot of waste as well. So if you actually look at Dr. Eliyahu Goldratt's work, you will kind of find that productivity for the sake of productivity is not really a good thing, right? So we'll come to that a little later. When it comes to motivation, in whatever context, right, there are two kinds of motivation that we can think of. So one is intrinsic motivation and one is extrinsic motivation. Examples of intrinsic motivation. So I do not know how many of you have heard of this book called Yoga Vashishta. So this is a book written by Valmiki, in which Valmiki talks about the learning that Lord Ram had, which enabled him to live the life that he lived going forward. This story is taking place just before Vishwamitra actually comes to King Dasharatha and asks Ram and Lakshmana to take with him in order to slay the demons that are disturbing his puja, right? The setting is such that after completing his studies with his guru, which is Vashishta, Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughan, they all go on a spiritual, on a journey. They go visit all holy places and come back. After coming back, Ram is completely dejected. He has absolutely no interest in anything. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to enjoy anything. So everyone is kind of, worried about him. So that's the time when Vishwamitra comes and asks Ram that, I want you to come and help me out here. And Ram says, I don't want to do anything because everything is temporary. Everything is impermanent. I want to know, why should I do something like this? And that is the point when Vashishta actually sits down with Ram and tells him whatever he needs to learn in order for him to continue the journey of life. So that is the book. And it is a 30,000 verses book, which talks about the essence of how to lead a life. And that is intrinsic motivation, because Ram wants to know how to lead a life. Not to achieve something, not to acquire something, but to lead a life, right? So that is what is intrinsic motivation all about. Now, what is intrinsic motivation? So another example from our scriptures or Puranas, which is Mahabharata. What Duryodhana wants is extrinsic motivation. He wants kingdom, he wants name, he wants fame, he wants everything that is in the physical world, outside of himself, right? So that is extrinsic motivation. Now, the question is having intrinsic motivation important, or is it extrinsic motivation that is important? Both are needed because of the simple fact that intrinsic motivation is long-lasting and long-term. It sustains us for a long period of time. It gives our lives purpose. But extrinsic motivation drives our behavior in the day-to-day. So I'll just give a small example. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the film star Rajinikanth, right? In one of the audio launches of one of his films, he talks about one of his experiences which led him to buy the first car that he bought after he became a successful actor. The story goes something like this. He had done 4 or 5 films. He was invited by a producer saying that, I'm doing a film. I want to cast you in a small role. And he says, okay, dates are available. I'm willing to act in the film. Can you give me a token advance? The producer says, okay, I'm not carrying any money right now. I'll send you the advance along with the executive producer. He will come to your home tomorrow and take measurements so that, we can get your costumes done. The shooting starts day after tomorrow. He says, okay. Next day, the executive producer comes, gives him, takes all the measurements, but doesn't bring the money. So they say that, okay, it will be given to you next day when you come to the shoot just before makeup. So he goes there, waits for the advance to be given. The makeup guys come and they say, okay, you're already late. We are ready for the shoot. Get the makeup done. You will be paid advance. Rajni says, no, I will only get makeup done after I receive the advance. So then, someone escalates it. Producer comes and says, okay, bloody, you're only 4 films or 5 films old. I've seen so many different things. We've seen so many different actors and all like you. I'm not going to give you any role. You go back to your home. And Rajni is like, you said you will give me the money. But what is wrong in that? He says, no movie, no role, you go back home. So Rajni asks him, okay, can you please get your car to drop me home? They say, no car, you have to walk home. And that walk from the studio to his home, he is like thinking about what happened and why is the producer so insulting to me. At that point in time, he decides that, he says this, அன்னைக்கு நான் டிசைட் பண்ணேன் இதே ரோட்ல ஃபாரின் கார்ல கால் மேல கால் போட்டு அதே ஸ்டுடியோல அதே செட்ல நான் ஹீரோவா நடிக்க போறேன். And he says in 2.5 years time, he had enough money to buy a Fiat car. He got a foreign driver because he wanted a foreign driver for a foreign car. And he actually went to the same set and proved what he said he will prove. Now, there are 2 things to see here. One is his intrinsic drive to become a better actor. Because that is what, K. Balachandar saw in him and groomed in him. And at the same time, the extrinsic motivation of showing that producer that, what he did on that day was wrong. So when intrinsic motivation combines with extrinsic motivation, it gives you both. It gives you long-term drive, which can sustain you over a long period of time. But at the same time, it gives you short-term milestones using which you can measure the progress that you have made. Right? So that's intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation that we are talking about. Now, in order for us to understand how all of this works, we need to understand how our brain works. Right? So consider your brain like an airport. So over airport, if you are taking an international flight or even a national domestic flight, what happens? You walk into the airport, there is a security area, they scan your stuff, right? And if whatever is scanned is deemed safe, you are sent to the terminal. If you are carrying something which poses a threat for the security, you are kind of, taken away and dealt with. That's exactly the same way human mind works. All the senses that we get through all our sensory organs, நம்ம பார்க்கிறது, கேட்கிறது, taste பண்றது, touch பண்றது, feel பண்றது, all of these are inputs that goes through a threat perception, like a security check. Right? And our mind looks at all the past patterns that we have experienced and sees whether any of this matches something that we perceive as a threat. And if we find that there is something that matches that perception of threat in the past, immediately the brain starts the threat response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. Right? The moment you get into the fight, flight, or freeze response, you lose all your ability to be rational. You go back to your base responses, and then it is all about survival. Now, just keep this in mind. It is not even reality. The perception of threat alone can cause this entire chain reaction. that is why you'll find that public speaking is such a big fear amongst people, because public speaking addresses a lot of things. It creates threat of rejection. It creates the threat of being ridiculed. It creates the threat of being found out, right? All of this creates a bit of a problem. Now, once you know that this is how your mind works, what can you do? What you can do is you can figure out and you can tell your mind that it is okay. Yes, we saw the threat. You acknowledge that you perceived the threat, but then you tell your mind that it is okay, and you go and not get into the fight, flight, or freeze response. Over a period of time, you can train your mind saying that this particular thing does not require a threat response. Over a period of time, that then becomes normal. You have changed your past perceptions, right? So now, how is that relevant to the concept of motivation? When it comes to extrinsic motivation, we are motivated by loss of something or gain of something, fear or pleasure, depending upon the context, depending upon your environment. Understanding this gives you the ability and the control, which is the intrinsic motivation, the agency to stay in control of yourself. Now, what do I mean by agency? If you believe that you can do something about your current situation, whatever the situation is, you have agency. Now, there is this author called Daniel Pink. He had written this interesting and very impactful book called Drive. In that, he talks about three things which contributes to intrinsic motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is all about whether I am responsible, am I responsible for my time, my action, my response, my results. How much control do I have on my environment? How much control do I have over the work that I do? How much control do I have over over what I work on, how I work on, and how much do I work on? Mastery is all about whether or not I have the control to become master at a particular thing. Am I getting better at something? Do I have control and do I have the ability to become better at something? And of course, purpose is, do I do what I think I want to do? Right? So when you combine these three things, it leads to agency, which leads to intrinsic motivation. Now, once you have both intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, you have the fuel that is necessary for you to undertake whatever journey you want to undertake. If you actually look right now, it leads, which is very, very important, which is self-discovery, which is what our culture has been talking about, right? You need to know who you are. You need to know why you want to do what you want to do. The how is very easy, so that can be figured out easily. But the more difficult question is, who are you? What do you want to do? Why you want to do it? Those three questions require a lot of internal deliberation. And in the long term, once you have answers to these three questions, you know what is the destination that you want to go to. Right? With intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation combined, you have the fuel to go where you want to go to. And then productivity is like the vehicle which can take you there. And all you need is a map, like a Google map, which can actually direct you step by step. Those are the tips and tricks that you can learn as you go along. So that is what I would say around motivation. Now, the question is, how do you get motivated? Now, once you know what the purpose is and your intrinsic motivation, you believe that you have agency to do whatever you want to do. Then you can start looking at extrinsic motivation. You can start setting smaller goals. For example, you can say, okay, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to achieve X, Y, and Z in purpose of, or so that I become this, right? So that's the combination that I would strongly suggest that you think about. Now comes the conversation around productivity. Now, if you actually think about it, you can look at everything that you do from a 4-stage lens, right? Intention, which is what you want to achieve. All of that thinking that you've done in terms of finding out what you want to do, why you want to do, and all that, that's your intention. Then you pay attention to everything around you, right? So once you have the intention, then you start paying attention to what is around. And then based on what you see, based on the situational awareness that you have, you start taking action towards what you want to go, towards what you want to achieve. And once you've taken the action, then you need to do reflection. So you thought you wanted to do something, you paid attention to what is around you, you took action, whether or not that action was the right action or not, whether you can do better or not. So that's one cycle of improvement that goes along. Then the classic productivity cycle, which is what all can you eliminate from your task list? You eliminate. Whatever you can automate, you automate. You eliminated all the things that you can eliminate. Once you've automated what you can automate, then you delegate what you can delegate to others. Whatever is left is what you take action on, right? And again, action, the other cycle goes on. After action, do reflection, set intention, pay attention, act, then go through the cycle again. Now, tips and tricks in terms of productivity, we can actually talk about it later. 3 other things that I would like to slightly touch upon before I open it up for questions and answers. Productivity is like unlocking something, right? So the lock consists of 3 things if you actually look at it. So if you remember the old lock in Hindi, they call it tijori. I'm forgetting what you call it in Tamil, but in the old films, you'll find that there is cash kept in this locker. And, you need to have these dials, 3-level, 4-level dials. Each dial you put a number. And once you get all the 4 dials right, it kind of opens. So similarly, there are mindsets that you need to have in a given circumstance. There are tools that you can use in order to do better in that particular circumstance or the environment. And then there are skills that you need to develop in order to be able to respond to the current circumstance. So all these 3 are like those 3 levers. In any given situation, you need to be get aware of the situation and start responding by picking the right mindset, the right tool, and the right skill. Now, in my book Thrive, I talk about 10 different mindsets that you can have in any given situation. I also talk about 12 different skills that you need to develop in order to be able to do really well going forward in an environment that we are all facing. Specifically in an environment where there is a lot of uncertainty, there is a lot of automation and things like that. And then, of course, there are a lot of tools that we have which we can actually use in that particular situation. So maybe I'll give an example of some of the mindset that we talk about. One mindset is entrepreneurial mindset, which is where you look at any given situation from the lens of opportunity. What opportunity does this situation provide me? One mindset can be a toddler's mindset, which is, I want to learn everything. You go to a beginner's mindset and start thinking about what can I learn in this current situation. Another mindset could be around, let's say, a philosopher's mindset. Another mindset could be, for example, a designer's mindset, where you look at create options, then you kind of pick an option and you create more option and pick an option and things like that. Same way, skill sets. There are some skill sets which are crucial for us to do really well and to be more productive going forward in our lives. One of them is the ability to learn. Learning how to learn is going to be the most important skill that we can develop in order to continuously stay focused and stay productive as we go along. Another skill that I talk about is the ability to think creatively. That's another thing that I talk about a lot, and how important it is to learn to think creatively. Tools are all about technology. For example, what technology can we deploy in order to eliminate some of the tasks that we do? What technology can we deploy to automate a lot of what we don't want to do? We need to do, but we don't want to do, right? So that which technology to be deployed at what point in time and at what level is the toolset component of it. Once all these three come together, the right mindset, the right tools, and the right skills in any given situation, automatically you will find that your productivity skyrockets. You're able to do whatever needs to be done in that given moment at the best of your capability. Now, productivity also can be looked at multiple levels, right? So one kind of productivity is being productive yourself as an individual. Then the second level of productivity, you can look at, how can you be productive as a team of individuals working together as well. Then the third level of productivity, you can look at it is, how can, as an organization, teams of teams can be productive together. Then you can look at how can you be productive as a industry, as a nation, and things like that, right? So you can continue to abstract. Now, the more higher we go, the more alignment and communication becomes critical. So those skill sets, the ability for us to be able to work together with each other, to be able to communicate with each other, to understand what drives each one of us, right? So what is our intrinsic motivation? What is our extrinsic motivation? Each one of us. If you are a manager, do you know what is the intrinsic motivation of your employees and what extrinsic motivation can actually support the intrinsic motivation that they have, so that they come to the work environment fully expressed with their entire self, with their entire ability. I remember one of my mentors, Porus Munshi, he used to tell me that what makes an organization great is not great people, is great processes. So it's not talent, it's process. So process beats talent every single time. What his communication is. His primary insight was. Now, if you actually think about it, today, around the world, there is a lot of conversation around war for talent. There's a lot of conversation around how can I attract talent. There's a lot of conversation around top talent, right? There's a lot of conversation around how to develop top talent. What people forget is every single human being has the same potential. All you need to do is to create an environment where that potential can actually be realized. I'm sorry, I see the text. I'm trying to bring in Tamil as well, but நான் ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணும்போது தமிழில் ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணது ரொம்ப கம்மி, அதனால மன்னிக்கணும். question answers, maybe I can do a lot more Tamil. So what I was coming at is, even at a motivational level, right? So you can have multiple levels of motivation. So one could be a completely demotivated person who doesn't know என்ன பண்றோம், ஏன் பண்றோம், எதுக்கு, don't know. So they are completely demotivated. Then there is someone who has a little bit of extrinsic motivation. காசு வேணும், வீடு வாங்கணும், அந்த கார் வாங்கணும். That's a little bit of extrinsic motivation that tells people that, okay, that gives them some energy. They will go out and they will try to put in some effort and do stuff. They will act. The third level of motivation is someone who is on a pursuit to find out what makes them tick. எனக்கு இது பிடிக்கும், நான் இதுதான் செய்யணும், இதுல நான் காசு பார்க்கணும், இதுல நான் ஃபேம் பார்க்கணும், இதுல நான் பெரிய ஆளா வரணும். So that is the third level of motivation, which is a little bit of intrinsic motivation combined with an extrinsic motivation. The top level of motivation, which I think is super effective, is I want to do what I want to do the way I want to do. Everything else is the result. காசு தன்னா வரும், நான் செய்யறது நல்லா செஞ்சா காசு தன்னா வரும், வீடு தன்னா வரும். That is the level of top level motivation. Now it is, as managers, as fathers, as parents, it is important for us, number one, to show that we are motivated, that it is possible for us to reach that level of motivation. Once we are able to do that, as fathers, as managers, as leaders, everyone else can see and follow. And that is one of my missions in life, which is to help people realize this, that each one of us has the same level of potential, and when realized, each one of us is capable of doing really great things. So it's about 50 minutes or so. So I'll stop there and maybe open it up for questions for the next 15 minutes or so. So you can either unmute yourself and ask your question, or put your question on the chat, and someone can actually ask the question, or I can look at the question and answer them. Now, tips and tricks, if you want, I can get into the tips and tricks as well in terms of how to be productive, but I leave it up to you in terms of whether you want to go there, because it depends on each individual and their environment and their social surroundings, so to say. But some things are very generic. For example, don't get distracted, focus, create focused time for thinking, learn technology, keep looking at technology which can help you eliminate and automate stuff, so that you don't have to do as much as you want to or as you need to. Always understand that what distracts you, and stay away from those distractions. Identify what are the most important things that you want to do and focus on them. 80-20 rule, Maslow's hierarchy of motivation. I mean, all of those content are available online, both in the form of articles, in the form of videos. So I didn't want to go there. So I'll just stop and open up for questions. Anyone? I hope what I spoke about gives you some thought. Even if you change one thing in your life because of what you've listened in the last 50 minutes or so, I think the time that we have spent together would be really useful. I do not know whether this was too high level for you guys, whether it was too abstract for you guys. But I think it is important for us to understand what leads to motivated people, what leads for us to stay motivated. People who lack motivation are people who are generally driven by extrinsic motivation. It is like how do I put it? A pot of water, right? குடத்துல தண்ணி போட்டு வச்சிருந்தா எப்படி நீங்க குடிக்க குடிக்க அதுல மறுபடியும் நீங்க தண்ணி ஊத்தி ஆகணும், அதை மறுபடியும் ஃபில் பண்ணி ஆகணும். அதே நீங்க ரிவருக்கு போயிட்டீங்க அப்படின்னா, as long as the river flows, for you can always dip into the river as much as you want. That is intrinsic motivation. The extrinsic motivation is the pot in which you fill water from the river, bring home and use on a day-to-day basis. So both are important, and you need to understand what drives you, where that river of motivation is for intrinsic motivation, which you can dip into whenever you want, and what those extrinsic motivation levers are, which you can use on a day-to-day basis to measure progress. So my physics HOD, when I was in college, used to tell me that, at the end of every one of his lectures, he would ask any questions, and with any class that generally nobody asks any questions, right? So he would say there are only two conditions in which there are no questions. One is everyone understood everything. The second is nobody understood anything. My experience tells me that people generally are reluctant to ask questions. So the first couple of people who ask questions takes courage. So, okay, so there is a question that has come up. Thanks, Priyanka. Thanks, Priya. How employee engagement impacts productivity? Brilliant question. Engaged employees are the employees who bring their full selves to work. What do I mean by full selves? They are the people who are already motivated. So in order for a person to engage with each other, to engage with their work, it requires motivation. So when you say engaged employees, automatically it means that they are motivated employees. Once you have engaged employees, then they can actually look at the work that they are doing, and then they can ask, okay, how can I improve this? How can I make my life better by improving the process, by improving how I'm doing what I'm doing, right? Now, engaged employees by themselves are more productive as individuals because they are motivated, they are engaged in terms of the work that they are doing. They feel they have a sense of agency, they feel they have a sense of autonomy and a sense of purpose and a sense of mastery. May not be completely, but at least to a certain extent. So individually they are productive. If you have a team of engaged employees who are engaged with each other and the work that they are doing, automatically what happens is, as a team, they are much more productive. They are able to collaborate better. They are able to work with each other better. They are able to figure out what can be automated. They are able to figure out what needs to be done by whom, and all the friction, the alignment, the communication is taken care of. Therefore, the team gets productive. If you have multiple teams which are engaged, the entire organization gets productive. So fundamental entity for an organization to be productive is engaged employees. I hope that answers your question. There is a question on what kind of motivation, intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, should be provided, especially for a really slow learner and a student who does not come out of his shell. The answer lies within your question itself. You cannot provide intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation, by definition, comes from within. If someone doesn't want to learn, you cannot force him to learn. As a teacher, all you can do is find out what drives that person, where his intrinsic motivation comes from, and then align the extrinsic motivation to that intrinsic motivation. That's it. You can provide the extrinsic motivation only if you know what drives someone intrinsically. So let me give you an example. So let's say for me, for example, a person like me, what drives me is the need to learn and continuously improve. The need to have a challenge in whatever I do. Of course, I mean, to have good salary, to have to be paid, to be compensated competently according to the industry standards, and all of that is a given. But what really drives me, what my intrinsic motivation is, to number one, continuously learn. Number two, to continuously improve and to be challenged. Now, if my boss knows that this is what drives me, he can decide to give extrinsic motivation, saying, no, okay, this is a stretch target for you. Automatically, I'm engaged. If he says, okay, you do this, I'll give you money, I'm not interested. I mean, I'm already earning enough. It may motivate me to a certain extent, not as much as if he tells me, okay, here is a project where it will stretch your skills, it will help you learn new things, it will help you improve yourself, and by the way, it will also get you more money. And you'll find that my level of engagement, complete thought process, complete focus, complete change. If I was driven by money, then if you tell me in the project பண்ணுங்க, இந்த ப்ராஜெக்ட்ல வந்து நீங்க நிறைய கத்துக்கலாம், நிறைய கத்துக்கிறது இருக்கும், நிறைய சேலஞ்சிங்கா இருக்கும். No, there you need to lead with money, right? So for you to understand what intrinsic motivation is for a person, in order to define the extrinsic motivation. I hope that answers your question. What steps do I need to take to move closer to my goal? There cannot be any generic, general question. That depends on what your goal is. If your goal is, let's assume, your goal is to make more money or buy a bigger house, then you need to understand that's the extrinsic motivation. But what about having a bigger house or having more money is more fulfilling? So உங்களுடைய அந்த இன்ட்ரின்சிக் மோட்டிவேஷன், ஏன் அதிகமா காசு வேணும், ஏன் எனக்கு பெரிய வீடு வேணும், அது தெரிஞ்சதுன்னா உங்களுக்கு மோட்டிவேஷன் வரும். மோட்டிவேஷன் இருந்ததுன்னா you can think, okay, what am I good at? What are my skills? What is my current environment that I am in? What are potential possibilities? What mindsets? என்ன mindset யூஸ் பண்ணலாம்? Entrepreneurship mindset யூஸ் பண்ணலாமா? இந்த சிச்சுவேஷன்ல என்னுடைய ஸ்கில் செட்டை வச்சு, என்கிட்ட இருக்கிற டூல்ஸை வச்சு நான் என்ன பண்ண முடியும்? So the sense of agency that we spoke about, autonomy, நான் என்ன பண்ண முடியும்? நான் கண்ட்ரோல்ல இருக்கேன், ஸோ என் கண்ட்ரோல்ல நான் என்ன பண்ண முடியும்? Sense of mastery, நான் what is it that I am good at? சில பேருக்கு it can be arts, சில பேருக்கு it can be engineering, சில பேருக்கு it can be writing, சில பேருக்கு it can be drawing, சில பேருக்கு it can be singing. So whatever it is, எதுல நீங்க மாஸ்டரா இருக்கீங்க, உங்களுடைய பர்பஸ் என்ன, இது மூணு ஒன்னா சேர்ந்ததுன்னா then you identify the mindsets, tool sets and skill sets that defines where you can go and how you can achieve your goals. Yuvraj is asking a question, how to control our emotions when we are dealing with negative mindset person? Extremely good question. So இதுக்கு ரெண்டு விதமா ஆன்சர் பண்ணலாம். ஒன்னு வந்து ஸ்பிரிச்சுவலா ஆன்சர் பண்ணலாம், ஒன்னு வந்து பிராக்டிக்கலா ஆன்சர் பண்ணலாம். ஸ்பிரிச்சுவலா ஆன்சர் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா, நீங்க மழை பெஞ்சதுன்னா என்ன ஆகும், நீங்க மழை பெஞ்சதுக்கு அப்புறம், மழை பெஞ்சு நின்று உடனே நீங்க வெளியில போய் பாத்தீங்கன்னா, மரத்துல பாத்தீங்கன்னா இலையில நிறைய தண்ணி டிராப்ஸ் அப்படியே நிற்கும் இல்லையா? ஸோ யூ நீட் டு பி லைக் தட் லீஃப், அந்த இலை மாதிரி இருக்கணும். நெகட்டிவ் மைண்ட் செட்டோட டீல் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா அது அவனுடைய பிரச்சனை. அவன் நெகட்டிவா இருக்கான். அந்த நெகட்டிவ் மைண்ட் செட்டை நம்ம கிட்ட நம்ம ஏத்துக்க கூடாது. அதுதான் பெரிய பிரச்சனை. நெகட்டிவ் மைண்ட் செட் பர்சனோட டீல் பண்ணும்போது their negativity rubs on us and makes us negative. Emotions actually transmit from one person to other, just like a virus transmits from one person to the other. We need to be careful that we do not become hosts for those emotions, the negative emotions, to transmit to us. So that is one way to look at it. Practically பார்க்க போனீங்கன்னா negative mindset, someone who has a negative mindset is actually struggling with something, right? If you really want to understand how to deal with that person, you need to understand what is that struggle about. And you can do that by asking questions, by being curious about why does that person have that mindset. The moment a person feels that he is seen, you see me, you hear me, you understand me, you will find that the negativity and the negative mindset slowly starts to fade away, just like ice melts. அதுக்கு பேஷன்ஸ் வேணும், அதுக்கு கியூரியாசிட்டி வேணும், அதுக்கு வந்து we need to understand that every person that we meet, we need to trust that they are not out there to get us. They are not out there to, they are not a threat to us. And the threat response system நம்ம பேசணும் பாத்தீங்களா ஸ்டார்டிங்ல, பிரெயின் எப்படி வேலை செய்யுதுன்னு. அந்த த்ரெட் ரெஸ்பான்ஸ் சிஸ்டம் வந்து 99% ஆஃப் த டைம் வந்து த்ரெட்டே இருக்காது. ஆனா த்ரெட் ரெஸ்பான்ஸ் சிஸ்டம்க்கு நம்ம போயிடுவோம். அதை கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ண நம்ம கத்துக்கிட்டோம்னா வெரி வெரி ஈஸி, மற்றதெல்லாம் ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா செட் ஆயிடும். அதை எப்படி கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா பிரீத். நீங்க ஒரு நெகட்டிவ் மைண்ட் செட் பர்சனோட டீல் பண்ணும்போது பிரீத், வெயிட் பண்ணுங்க, உடனே ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ணாதீங்க. ஏன்? ஆஸ்க் them why. That is the way to deal with negative person with a negative mindset. I hope that answers your question. Dharmalingam asks, thank you for your speech. There are demotivation factors, comparison, sometimes depressing even though full efforts made. Okay, so this is a very important point. Comparison is always a problem. So if you compare yourself with someone, it is always a problem. Another problem similar to comparison is all about okay, so let's stay with comparison first. So you know how to make a big line into a smaller line, right? So just draw a bigger line next to it. There is always a potential to draw a bigger line. So அந்த கம்பேரிசன் எப்பவுமே இருந்துகிட்டே இருக்கும். உங்க பக்கத்துல உங்க வீட்டு பக்கத்து வீட்டுக்காரங்க, உங்களுடைய கொலீக்ஸ், உங்களுடைய கிளாஸ்மேட்ஸ், some of them are learning more, some of them are earning more, some of them are have a bigger house, better car. As long as you compare with someone outside, what you're doing, நீங்க என்ன பண்றீங்கன்னா அந்த locus of control, அந்த agency, அந்த autonomy, you are giving it to someone else. நீங்க என்ன பண்ணணும்? நான் நேத்து எங்க இருந்தேன், அதை விட நான் இன்னைக்கு பெட்டரா இருக்கேனா இல்லையா? நேத்து நான் எப்படி பண்ணேன், அதை விட இன்னைக்கு நான் பெட்டரா பண்ணனா இல்லையா? நேத்து போன வருஷம் நான் எப்படி இருந்தேன், அதை விட இந்த வருஷம் நல்லா இருக்கேனா இல்லையா? The moment you start comparing yourself with yourself, the problem subsides. Of course, sometimes you compare yourself with someone else to motivate yourself to reach that level of heights. அதனால தான் சொன்னேன், it depends. உங்களுடைய இண்டிவிஜுவல் பர்சனாலிட்டியை பொறுத்து. ஒரு சில பர்சனாலிட்டி வந்து எப்படின்னா, ஒருத்தனை பார்த்து அவன் நல்லா பண்றான்னா நம்ம எப்படி அங்க போலாம், நம்ம எப்படி அந்த அளவுக்கு முன்னுக்கு வரலாம் அப்படின்னு யோசிப்பாங்க. ஒரு சிலர் எப்படின்னா, அதை பார்த்து அவன் இவ்வளவு நல்லா இருக்கான், நம்ம அப்படி இல்லையே அப்படின்னு யோசிப்பாங்க இல்லையா? அந்த யோசனை, அந்த பர்சனாலிட்டி ட்ரெயிட் வந்து ஒவ்வொருத்தருக்கும் ஒவ்வொரு மாதிரி. நம்மளுடைய பர்சனாலிட்டி ட்ரெயிட் என்னன்றது நம்ம பார்த்துக்கணும். அதுக்கு தகுந்த மாதிரி ஓகே. ஸோ நம்ம டிப்பிக்கலி வி டென் டு demotivate ourselves when we see someone else doing better. So now then let's not look at and compare with them. Let's compare with ourselves, or let's compare with people who are less than us. And if it motivates you, do that comparison, right? But ultimately நீங்க என்ன ஆக விரும்புறீங்கன்றது உங்களுடைய சாய்ஸ். அதுக்கு என்ன செய்ய விரும்புறீங்கன்றது உங்களுடைய சாய்ஸ். So it is not enough to say I want to become a millionaire. எனக்கு 1 கோடி ரூபாய் சம்பாதிக்கணும் சொன்னா பத்தாது இல்லையா? அதுக்கேற்ற மாதிரி ஆக்ஷன் இருக்கணும். இன்டென்ஷன், எனக்கு 1 கோடி ரூபாய் சம்பாதிக்கணும் இன்டென்ஷன். நான் எங்க இருக்கிறேன், என்ன சுத்தி என்ன நடக்குது, என்னுடைய ஸ்கில்ஸ் என்ன, என்னுடைய டூல்ஸ் என்கிட்ட என்ன இருக்கு, அது அட்டென்ஷன். இதெல்லாம் வச்சு நான் என்ன பண்ண முடியும், என்ன பண்றேன், அது ஆக்ஷன். நான் பண்ணதுக்கு நான் என்ன யோசிச்சு பண்ணணும், அந்த ரிசல்ட் வந்துச்சா இல்லையா, வரலன்னா ஏன் வரல, வந்துச்சுன்னா இதை எப்படி இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்றது, அது ரிஃப்ளெக்ஷன். இந்த 4மே வேணும், முக்கியம். 4மே இருந்தா நீங்க என்ன வேணா சாதிக்கலாம். I hope that answers your question. To be successful in life as well as career, which one is more important, skill set or mindset? It is not a question of if this or that. Mindset and skill set and tool set, மூணுமே முக்கியம். அந்த லாக் 3 நம்பரும் கரெக்டா செட் ஆனாதான் லாக்கர் ஓபன் பண்ண முடியும் இல்லையா? அதேதான் உங்களுடைய மைண்ட் செட் வந்து எந்த சிச்சுவேஷனுக்கு ஏற்ற, எந்த சிச்சுவேஷனுக்கு எந்த மாதிரி யோசிக்கணும், அது யோசனை, அது மைண்ட் செட். நீங்க யோசிச்சதை செய்ய முடியணும், அது ஸ்கில் செட். அது செய்யறதுக்காக என்ன டூல்ஸ் வேணும், அது டூல் செட். மூணுமே ஒன்னா சேர்ந்தாதான் வாழ்க்கையில சக்சஸ் பார்க்க முடியும். ஒன்னு மட்டும் இருந்து இன்னொன்னு இல்லைன்னா டிஃபிகல்ட். மைண்ட் செட் இருக்கு ஆனா ஸ்கில் செட் இல்லை. ஸோ என்னுடைய கோச் எனக்கு நல்ல ஞாபகம் இருக்கு. நான் அண்டர்-16 நான் ஸ்கூல்ல இருக்கும்போது அண்டர்-16 கிரிக்கெட் டீமுக்காக, ஸ்டேட் டீமுக்காக செலெக்ஷனுக்கு போயிருந்தேன். தே ஹேட் அ கேம்ப். சிபிஎஸ் மணின்னு அப்போ ஒரு கோச் இருந்தாரு. ஸோ அவர் தான் ரஞ்சி டீமுடைய கோச் அப்ப தமிழ்நாடு டீமுக்கு. அவர் கேம்ப் நடத்தினாரு. கேம்ப் முடிஞ்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் ஒவ்வொரு பிளேயருக்கும் கூப்பிட்டு அவர் அட்வைஸ் கொடுத்தாரு. நீங்க இதை பண்ணணும், நீங்க இதை பண்ணணும், நீங்க இதை பண்ணணும்னு. என் டர்ன் வந்தப்ப என்கிட்ட வந்து என்ன சொன்னாருன்னா, நீ கிரிக்கெட்டு உன் மூலையில சூப்பரா ஆடுற. நான் கேட்டேன், வாட் டஸ் தட் மீன்? He said, எந்த சிச்சுவேஷன் என்ன செய்யணும் உனக்கு நல்லா சூப்பரா தெரியுது. இப்படி போட்டா இப்படி அடிக்கணும்னு தெரியுது, இப்படி விளையாடினா இப்படி போடணும்னு தெரியுது, ஆனா போட முடியலையே. ஸோ மைண்ட் செட் இருக்கு, ஸ்கில் செட் இல்லை. ஸோ ஐ said, okay. I mean, I asked him, இதை நான் கத்துக்க முடியுமா? Do you think I can make a career out of it? He said, no. He said, if you want, you can become a coach. If you want, you can become a commentator. You cannot become a player. So I said, okay, I'll just play for fun. அதோட நின்று போச்சு. ஸோ மைண்ட் செட், ஸ்கில் செட், டூல் செட் மூணுமே முக்கியம். Let me know what are the other motivational factors other than financial and non-financial motivation in organizations. Good question. So கிட்டத்தட்ட எந்த பெரிய கம்பெனி எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கனாலும் ஒரு எதிரி வேணும், ஒரு வில்லன். That is a big motivation. பெப்சி எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா கோக் வில்லன், கோக் எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா பெப்சி வில்லன். பெப்சியை விட நான் நல்லா வரணும், கோக்கை விட நான் நல்லா வரணும், அவனை விட நான் நல்லா வரணும். At an organizational level, that brings the best out of everyone. If you have that collective opposition, ஒரு கூட்டம் ஒன்னா சேரணும் அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம் வந்து ஏன் சேரணும், அது முக்கியம் இல்லையா? பிகாஸ் இட் கேன் பி பிகாஸ் நம்ம எல்லாம் தமிழர்கள், ஓகே, நம்ம எல்லாரும் வந்து இண்டஸ்ட்ரி, நாங்க ஆட்டோமோட்டிவ் இண்டஸ்ட்ரி ஒன்னா சேர்றோம். ஏதாவது ஒரு காரணம் ஒன்னா சேர்றதுக்கு, அது ஒரு that is one way to bring people together. Another way to bring people together is anti something. I'm anti Modi. I'm anti Rahul Gandhi. I'm anti Congress. I'm anti BJP. I'm anti this, anti that. That is also something that brings together people. And in an organizational context, having a villain or someone whom you want to upset brings together people like anything. That is one. It can be anything, you know. Even it can be internal competition. So, for example, product team want to be better than one plant trying to be better than the other plant. Another way to motivate. So that is one. There is another way for you to motivate organizations, which is burning platform, as they call it. நம்ம இருக்கிறது இப்படியே இருந்தோம்னா நம்ம ஒழிஞ்சிடுவோம், மாறி ஆகணும், நம்ம செய்யற வேலையை மாத்தி ஆகணும். We have to do innovation. We have to improve productivity. We have to improve this. Otherwise, we will die. That entire threat response. You create the threat response. You create the fear, and that motivates people. So those are two things that I can think of right away. How can I convey someone who is not ready to listen to my words? Stop trying to convey, start listening. Why are they not listening? People typically don't tend to listen if they feel that they are not heard. The moment they feel that they are heard, they will listen to you. My goal is I want to work in other countries. What are the things that I want to learn to achieve my goal? That's a very broad goal. Other countries doing what? So you need to find out what are your skill sets and which countries provide opportunities for those skill sets. Then you look at who in your network do you know who already is working in that country with that skill set. If you don't know someone, reach out to someone on LinkedIn or today online provides you opportunities to connect with so many different people. Reach out to people, ask for help. They will tell you for sure. Again, keep in mind, once you know the intention, what is it that you want to do, then you need to pay attention to what is around you. What do you have access to? What are the tool sets that you have? What are your skills? What kind of mindsets do you have? Then you take action on that. First step என்ன எடுக்க முடியும்? எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சவங்க யாரா இருக்காங்களா அதே அந்த கண்ட்ரியில, let's say for example you want to go to யூஎஸ்ல வேலை செய்யறவங்க யாரையாவது எனக்கு தெரியுமா? என்கிட்ட இருக்கிற ஸ்கில் செட் யூஸ் பண்ணி அங்க வேலை செய்யற யாரையாவது தெரியுமா? தெரிஞ்சதுன்னா அவங்க கிட்ட கேட்கணும், நீ எப்படி போன, நான் எப்படி வரலாம், and things like that. I mean, these are very simple things to do. We overcomplicate stuff. Okay, Ashok is asking how to identify the person. Vivek sir, is it okay if we continue? I mean, I'm okay to continue for the next 15-20 minutes as well.
I think it's okay. Bhavani madam, you have to tell us.
Okay sir, no problem sir.
Go ahead sir. We are happy they're interacting.
So Ashok is asking how to identify the person who has interest to do the task, but his fear will not confront. How to motivate that kind of a person? Okay, so we did not touch upon one very important topic from an organizational context today, which is culture. If you really want people to come forward and talk to you about their interest, about taking responsibility, you need to build a culture which allows that. நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா கம்பெனில நீங்க ஒரு புது கம்பெனிக்கு வேலைக்கு சேர்றீங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. நீங்க என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க? அந்த கம்பெனில ஜாயின் பண்ண ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஒரு வாரம் 10 நாள் ஒரு மாசம் வாய மூடிட்டு மத்தவங்க என்ன பண்றாங்கன்றத பாப்பீங்க. அவங்க மத்தவங்க எப்படி ட்ரெஸ் பண்றாங்க, மத்தவங்க எப்படி பேசுறாங்க, ஃபார்முலா பேசுறாங்களா, கேஷுவலா பேசுறாங்களா, கேள்வி கேட்கறாங்களா, ஐடியாஸ் வர்ற ஐடியாஸை உடனே சொல்றாங்களா, இல்ல நம்ம ஐடியா நம்ம கிட்டே வச்சுக்கலாம், கேள்வி கேட்ட மட்டும் பதில் சொல்லலாம், அப்படி சொல்றாங்களா? ஸோ அந்த கல்ச்சர் ரொம்ப முக்கியம். As a manager and as a CEO or as a leader, நம்மளுடைய முக்கியமான வேலை என்னன்னா we are caretakers of the culture. இது வந்து விவசாயம் மாதிரி தாங்க. விவசாயம் பண்றது எப்படி? நீங்க வந்து நிலத்துல you till the land, right? You put the seeds, you put manure, you water, and then you weed out. நமக்கு வேண்டிய பயிர் தவிர இது என்ன வந்தாலும் அதை வீட் அவுட் பண்ணிடுறோம் இல்லைங்களா? அதே மாதிரி தாங்க லீடர்ஷிப்பும் கல்ச்சரும். நமக்கு என்ன மாதிரி கல்ச்சர் வேணும்ன்றது நமக்கு தெரியணும். முதல்ல இன்டென்ஷன், எந்த மாதிரி கல்ச்சர் இருக்கு அப்படின்றத நம்ம இவாலுவேட் பண்ணணும். அட்டென்ஷன், ரெண்டுத்துக்குள்ள கேப் இருக்கு இல்லைங்களா? அந்த கேப்பை எப்படி க்ளோஸ் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்றது வந்து ஆக்ஷன். ஸோ ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், நீங்க வந்து உங்களுடைய டீம்ல இருக்கிற மக்கள் வந்து முன்னுக்கு வந்து நான் இதை செய்யறேன் அப்படின்னு அவங்க சொல்லணும்னு எதிர்பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, நீங்க அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு கல்ச்சரை கிரியேட் பண்ணணும். அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு கல்ச்சரை கிரியேட் பண்றதுக்கு என்ன பண்ணணும்? நீங்க அதை எம்பாடி பண்ணணும். நீங்க மறுபடியும் சொல்லணும். எவனாவது வந்து அந்த மாதிரி முன்னுக்கு வந்து பேசினா அப்படின்னா அவனை ஹீரோவாக்கணும். இந்த பாரு, இவன் வந்து இவனுக்கு ஒரு ஐடியா இருந்தது, இவன் அந்த ஐடியாவை சொன்னா, அந்த ஐடியா நல்ல ஐடியாவோ கெட்ட ஐடியாவோ அது அடுத்த விஷயம். அந்த ஐடியா நீங்க இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்றீங்களோ இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ணலையோ அது அடுத்த விஷயம். அந்த ஐடியா கொண்டு வந்தா பாத்தீங்களா, அவனை செலிப்ரேட் பண்ணணும். நீங்க அவனை செலிப்ரேட் பண்ணீங்கன்னா யூ வில் கெட் மோர் ஐடியாஸ். ரெஸ்பான்சிபிலிட்டி கேட்கிறவனுக்கு ரெஸ்பான்சிபிலிட்டி கொடுத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா யூ வில் கெட் மோர் பீப்புள் who will come forward to ask for more responsibility. நீங்க எதை ரிவார்ட் பண்றீங்க, நீங்க எதை பனிஷ் பண்றீங்க, அதுதான் உங்களுடைய கல்ச்சர். நீங்க ரிவார்ட் பண்றது அதிகமா வரும், பனிஷ் பண்றது குறைஞ்சிட்டே போகும். அவ்வளவுதாங்க. ரொம்ப சிம்பிளான மேட்டர். நீங்க எந்த மாதிரி கல்ச்சர் வேணும்ன்றது நீங்க முடிவு பண்ணணும், அதை ரிவார்ட் பண்ணணும், அதுக்கு தகுந்த மாதிரி பனிஷ் பண்ணணும். அவ்வளவுதான். I hope that answer your question. Everyone knows everything, but we are not monitoring our subconscious mind consistently. When are we going to understand our karma? நல்ல கேள்வி இது. It's not a very easy thing to do, right? And it is not something that நான் இப்ப பண்றேன் அப்படின்னா கிடையாது. இந்த நிமிஷத்துக்கு நீங்க பண்ணலாம், அடுத்த நிமிஷம் மறுபடியும் monkey mind, it will always keep thinking. As long as there are sense organs which perceive everything that comes to you through touch, smell, sound, taste, your mind will continue to think, and your mind will continue to expect, and your mind will continue to dance around, and every moment you need to think about it and be conscious about what is happening. How should a business respond to voluntary turnover of productive employees? Nalla kelvi. Again, the question comes to culture. Can you create an environment where people want to come and work? See, konjam ஒரு சில voluntary turnover is good. நீங்க விவசாயம் பண்றதுல கூட நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா, after one crop you actually remove it, put something else, and then you again go through the entire process, right? Even in organization, in teams, it is always a good thing that new ideas and new people come into the team, so that they bring in new energy, they bring new ideas, they bring new concepts, new challenges, which pushes everyone to do better. So Ursula turnover is good because their expectation you may not be able to match. Their journey might not be the same journey that you are going on, so that's okay. But as long as you create a culture where people want to stay, want to work in, you will find that the number of employees who voluntarily leave will be minimal. So did I miss any question? Are there any questions on the YouTube live chat as well? If someone can actually look at it and ask, that will be great as well. Okay. So I think I missed one question in the start. Which one? Kumar, as a manager, we keep motivated our downline people. How we know whether the team has started learning or the message is reached? It's a good question again. How do you know if someone is motivated or not? How do you know if what you've communicated has been understood, not just understood, but is being acted upon? Is all about observation. So, do you observe? Has the behavior does the behavior indicate motivation? Now, you can easily find out the difference between someone who is motivated to do his work and someone who is just going through the motions. It shows by energy. It shows by the way someone responds. It shows in terms of how much ideas and how much personal involvement that they bring in, right? And one of the primary responsibilities of a manager is to have constant, consistent communication with your people. It's a two-way communication, not one way. So, as a manager, you need to ask people. One of the most productive tasks that you can do as a manager is to ask people, what are they doing? What are they feeling? How motivated to gauge how motivated, how engaged, and how productive your employees are. What is okay? So one of the most impactful question a manager can ask his employees is the following: is there anything that I can do that can help you do your job better? How can I help? The more you ask this question, the more you stop and listen and do something about whatever you've listened. That is important. Intention, attention, action, reflection. All four needs to happen. So by asking the question, how can I help? You are showing the intention that you want to help. Listening and understanding what the person says is paying attention, taking action on whatever you've learned, and then again, reflecting whether is this a problem that this one employee has? Is this a problem that could be across all employees? You do that reflection. Is there something deeper than what the employee is saying? That's your reflection. And again, the entire cycle continues. So I hope that that answers your question as well. Can you tell me about the work environment that makes you most productive? Okay. For me, what makes me most productive is, number one, whatever I'm doing needs to be challenging. If it is too easy, if it is something that I've been doing for a long time, I don't have to think about it, I'm not productive. The moment it challenges me, both intellectually, emotionally, and skill-wise, I'm engaged. From an environment perspective, I like to have an environment which I really like. So, for example, I don't know whether you are able to see this. I like having things like this with me, which is a scented candle. So I like to engage the sense of smell. I have books all around me. You can't see this now, but I have books all around me. Everywhere I go, there are books surrounded. I'm surrounded by books. Those help me become more productive. I like interacting with people. So going to an office, I'm more productive than when I'm working from home. I think those, and having a whiteboard, again, you can't see this, but I have a whiteboard right here on which I kind of do a lot of whiteboarding, my ideas and things like that. So that ability to do the whiteboarding makes me more productive. The ability to think on an ongoing basis makes me more productive. So I hope that helps. Again, it depends on every single person. For some people, having a clean desk is important. For some people, having a messy desk is important. It also depends on your role, right? If you are a engineering head in a plant, you want your production line to be a certain way. If you are a creative director in an advertising agency, or if you're a marketing manager who is supposed to come up with new product ideas or new marketing ideas, you need a different kind of an environment. So it always depends on the person, and is individual specific. So Manikandan says some talented people have contributed more for the growth of an organization. Simultaneously, they are breaching the rules. How to deal with them? It's happening in many places. Very, very important point. Again, it all boils down to the culture that you want in your organization. One of the most difficult things to do as a leader is to figure out what to do with people who continuously defy the kind of culture that you want to build, but are extremely productive. Superstar employees, as we call them, right? One of the things that we need to understand is if you want your employees, other employees, to also break those rules and become superstar employees, you celebrate these people. If you want everyone to follow the rules, you cannot have one or two employees breaking rules all the time and getting away. Because that is sending a message that, it is okay for the rules. It is okay for you to break the rules in some conditions, in certain conditions. That is a disastrous recipe for any large organization or any organization which wants its people to follow the processes and the rules. You have to let them go. Either you get them to change or let them go. It impacts short term, but has a much better impact in the long term. Again, நீங்க எதை ரிவார்ட் பண்றீங்களோ அது உங்களுக்கு உங்களுடைய கம்பெனியில அதிகமா வரும். நீங்க எதை பனிஷ் பண்றீங்களோ அது உங்க கம்பெனியில நடக்காது. ஸோ யூ நீட் டு பி வெரி டெலிபரேட். எதை ரிவார்ட் பண்றோம், எதை பனிஷ் பண்றோம், ரொம்ப இன்டென்ஷனலா பண்ணோம். Every single one of these action actually tells all your employees what is important, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. I hope that helps that answers your question, Manikandan. If you don't want that to be a pervasive behavior, you have to let them go or get them to change. Okay, so I'm still available for the next maybe two or three more minutes, maybe one or two questions more. Otherwise, I hope the time we spent today was useful, helpful in some way or the factor. I really, as a last request, I have one question. If you can on the chat write one thing that you think you learned from the 70 or 75, 80 or minutes that you spent with us, I would be really obliged. Otherwise, thanks for your time and thanks for the invitation, Vivek sir, and thanks for having me.
Bhavani madam, give the vote of thanks.
Our treasurer are waiting, sir.
Sir, Ravi Kumar sir, welcome sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vivek. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Am
Yes,
I
sir.
audible? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning and probably exactly 12 noon now, so I would say good afternoon also. So it was a wonderful session, Dr. Mr. Mukesh. In fact, I need to apologize to you. I joined halfway only, but I could for me today the learning was learn how to learn. That is the learning I am taking as a learning from today's session. So that's a tagline really hit my mind, top of my mind, apart from many other points, whatever you have said there. So thank you, Mr. Mukesh, for sparing your time, and it was a really wonderful session. But of course, I missed the initial things, which I will anyway catch up with the recording. And I would like to thank all the participants who made their time, participated in this. And in fact, the interactive session was very nice with so many questions. Appreciate all the people who asked the questions. Even others who do not ask the questions, probably for these answers, whatever given, could have answered your questions inside your mind. So thank you so much for the participants, and thanks for all the organizations who have actively nominated their people to participate in this organization. And last but not the least, I need to thank two people. One is Dr. Vivek, who has been a kind of a big motivator and a supporter for organizing this event. Thank you, Dr. Vivek. And our office team in CPC, particularly Mrs. Bhavani, plus the team for organizing this wonderful program. And I think it went on seamlessly. So we look forward seeing you again in the next session, and we are going to have this celebration for the full week. And also we look forward to seeing you all in our productivity conclave, which is scheduled next week. Hope many of you would have got the mailers about the program. So we need to make a positive participation in that, so that you get learning, and vis-a-vis, it's going to be a win-win situation for you personally as organization. Thank you, Mr. Mukesh, once again.
Thanks again. Take care.
Okay.